If there's one part of the IELTS speaking test that students overcomplicate, it's part one. I've heard students say things like, my teacher told me to speak exactly 3 sentences. Others believe they have to use difficult vocabulary in every answer, or that saying, I don't know, automatically lowers their score. None of those things are true. In this lesson, I want to explain how part one actually works, not according to YouTube myths, but according to the official assessment criteria and what examiners really listen for. Let's begin with one important fact. Many students think part one is just a warm-up before the real test begins. It isn't. From the very first question, your performance is assessed. If the examiner asks, where are you from? Your answer contributes to exactly the same 4 assessment criteria that will be used in parts 2 and 3. Nothing changes later. So don't treat part 1 casually. What's the examiner really trying to find out? Contrary to what many students believe, the examiner is not trying to test your knowledge. They are not interested in whether your hometown is beautiful. They don't care whether your favorite sport is football or tennis. They are listening to how you communicate. Can you answer naturally? Can you explain your ideas? Can you keep speaking without long pauses? Can you use vocabulary accurately? Can you produce a range of grammar? Can people understand your pronunciation? That's it. That's all. The first mistake students make, many students hear a question and then immediately start thinking, how can I sound intelligent? That's the wrong question. Instead, ask yourself, how would I answer this if I were speaking to a friend? For example, do you enjoy cooking? A natural answer might be, I do, or yes, I do. I usually cook dinner myself because it's healthier than ordering takeaway, and I actually find cooking quite relaxing. Nothing impressive, nothing complicated, yet this answer demonstrates fluency, grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation much better than a memorized answer full of advanced words. One question I get asked all the time is, how long should my answers be? This is probably the most common misconception in IELTS. There's no required number of sentences. There never has been. If someone tells you, always speak 3 sentences, ask them where that rule appears in the IELTS assessment criteria. It doesn't. Instead, think about whether you've answered the question properly. For example, do you work or are you a student? I am a student, perfectly acceptable, but you can add some details. Nothing else is required. Now compare that with another question. Why did you choose that subject? Now one sentence probably isn't enough. You need to explain. I've always been interested in languages and I wanted a career where I could work with people from different countries. The question determines the length, not an imaginary rule. Another misunderstanding is students often think that speaking more automatically means getting a higher score, not necessarily. Imagine I ask, do you enjoy watching films? Student A says, yes, I usually watch films at weekends because it's a good way to relax after a busy week. Student B speaks for almost a minute, repeats the same ideas several times, goes off topic and forgets the original question. Who performed better? Almost certainly student A. Quality always matters more than quantity. Let's talk about vocabulary. Some students spend months memorizing words that they never actually use in real life. Words like multifaceted, ubiquitous, paramount. There's nothing wrong with these words. The problem is that students often use them incorrectly. Remember this. Ben 7 does not require sophisticated vocabulary. It requires appropriate vocabulary. Listen to these 2 answers. I live in a busy city, or I reside within a densely populated metropolitan area. Which one sounds more natural? Exactly. IELTS is testing communication, not your ability to sound like an academic journal. Here's another myth that refuses to disappear. Never say, I don't know. Actually, sometimes that's the most natural answer. Imagine the examiner asks, what's your favorite piece of jewelry? You don't wear jewelry. Instead of inventing a complicated answer, you could simply say, honestly, I don't really know because I never wear jewelry. If I had to choose something, I would probably say a watch. Perfectly natural. The important part is not saying I don't know. The important part is continuing the conversation. Should you tell the truth? This surprises many students. The answer is not necessarily. The examiner is not checking your biography. If it's easier to invent a simple answer, that's absolutely fine. Suppose the examiner asks, do you enjoy gardening? Maybe you've never touched a plant in your life. You could say, yes, although I don't do it very often, I sometimes help my parents look after the garden during the summer. That's completely acceptable. The only thing I wouldn't recommend is creating a complicated story that you will struggle to maintain later. Keep it simple. What about idioms? This is another area where students lose marks. They think every answer needs an idiom. It doesn't. In fact, forcing idioms into every answer often sounds unnatural. Imagine someone asks, do you enjoy shopping? And you reply, shopping is my cup of tea. Possible? Yes, natural? Not really. A simple answer like, yes, I enjoy shopping, especially when I am buying clothes. Sounds much more authentic and real. Remember, natural English is always better than decorative English. Let's discuss fluency. It doesn't mean speaking quickly. Sometimes, some students speak so fast that even they can't keep up with themselves. Others speak painfully slowly because they are trying not to make mistakes. Neither approach is ideal. Fluency simply means speaking at a comfortable, natural pace without constantly stopping to search for words. Imagine you are talking to someone you've just met. That's the speed you are aiming for. One thing students worry about unnecessarily is, what if I make a grammar mistake? You will. Everyone does. Even native speakers do. Suppose you say, I go there last week. You immediately realize the mistake. Just say sorry. I went there last week. Then continue. Don't apologize 5 times. Don't restart the answer. The examiner is not looking for perfection. They are looking for communication. Here's a strategy I teach all my students. Forget templates. Forget sentence counting. Forget memorizing answers. Whenever you hear a part 1 question, think about only 3 things. First, answer the question. Second, give a reason. Third, if it feels natural, add a short example. Let's see how it works. Do you enjoy reading? Yes, I do. I usually read before going to bed because it helps me relax. At the moment, I'm reading a detective novel by author X. That's it. No complicated formula, no memorized expressions, just a complete natural answer. Finally, here's something I would like you to remember. Your goal in part 1 is not to impress the examiner. Your goal is to make the conversation easy. If the examiner can understand you effortlessly, if your answer sounds natural, if you can explain simple ideas comfortably, you are already demonstrating many of the qualities needed for Band 7. Don't chase perfection, chase clarity, because that's exactly what IELTS speaking is designed to reward.